Grace, I want to thank you for being with us. Bombshell tonight. Investigators stunned when a tip leads them to crawl underneath a home only to discover the tiny remains of a 3-year-old baby boy. Tonight, we ID those remains as 3-year-old Caleb Pacheco. We also learn family, neighbors, relatives, friends begging in tears for DFACS, Department of Family Children's Services, not to give the boy to his mother. Don't give him back to his mother. Well, of course they did. And now the baby is dead up under the home. We are taking your calls to Nia Bender, anchor KFKA. Nia, cops, investigators up under a home looking as a result of a tip. What happened? What did they find?
What they ended up finding was badly decomposed remains of 3-year-old Caleb Pacheco that at this point they're still trying to determine exactly what his cause of death was.
Have they absolutely identified his remains, Nia?
Yes, they have.
I'm disgusted, Nia. I'm absolutely disgusted. What's the name of this? Logan County, Clark? Logan County Social Services. You had a fleet of people begging them to investigate his whereabouts. They said, oh, we can't find Mommy. We don't know her LKA last known address. You know what? If the tax man can find her, they can find her when a child's life is at stake. They failed miserably. What did this child endure before his death? That's what I want to know. And we're going to be flashing the phone numbers for you to have an impact, to stand up and make a difference. There you go, Senator Bennett. There you go, Senator Udall. There you go, AG's office. Let's get some action. We're paying you. Now do what we want you to do. Make a difference. I want to go to Lieutenant Joe McBride, but first back to you, Nia Bender. When they find the remains under the home, there were fears confirmed about where is baby Caleb. How were the remains hidden? Were they packaged? Were they wrapped? Were they in a shallow grave? What can you tell me about what investigators found under the home?
What they found was the little boy was wrapped in, it looked like plastic bags, and a blanket with a few of his items nearby.
You know, that's something I don't quite get. Quickly to you, Karen Stark. We saw this in the Tot Mom case, and I see it in a lot of other child murders, where the child will be murdered, number one, and then buried with a favorite blanket. In that case, the Winnie the Pooh blanket. In this case, Caleb's favorite blanket, PJ's. Why? Why does a cold-blooded killer then try to soften it by burying the baby with its blanket?
You can see a sign here, Nancy, of someone who has like a split personality, very schizoid, because the baby is buried in the blanket, which makes you feel like perhaps there's attachment, but then if you keep looking, there's plastic over all of that, which is like a piece of meat. And so it's kind of this torn between, I care about this baby, but I could care less. It's like a tree.
What I'm saying, break it down for me. I'm just a JD, not an MD. They kill the baby, but then they want to dispose of the body with its favorite blanket. What does that mean to a shrink like you?
Well, I feel like it's like a doll. You know, when you play with a doll, when the little girl plays with a doll, she wants to have it in its favorite blanket, but knows that it's not a real baby. So this is not a real baby to her because she would have then, on top of that, killed it, put the blanket, and then plastic.
Karen,
yes. Nancy,
I get it. I get it. I know what it says to you. But what it says to me is Mommy did it. That's what it says to me, because who else is going to, A, know the favorite blanket, and B, bury the baby, hide the baby's body with its baby blanket? To Natisha Lance on the story. Natisha, what led cops to go crawl up under a home?
Well, Nancy, apparently someone had posted something on Facebook. A concerned citizen saw this, and that's when they contacted authorities. When authorities were contacted, they alerted all of the local agencies in the Colorado area, and within a week's time, Juanita Kinzie
McBride with the Logan County Sheriff's Office. He's a spokesman for them. Lieutenant, thank you for being with us. I can only imagine that this is the sheriff's worst nightmare. The call they don't want to take is to find a child's body, all right? Especially, possibly at the hands of its own mother. What can you tell us about the case, Lieutenant McBride?
Well, the amount that I can tell you is limited due to the gag order that's put in place on it.
Right.
Basically, as you've heard, initially it came through from a citizen regarding the Facebook page that was made for Caleb Pacheco. After we had received that information and began looking into the matter, contacting local jurisdictions in an attempt to locate Juanita Kinzie,
the mom,
on Sunday, we were able to basically obtain enough information to get a search warrant for the property in Sterling.
Lieutenant McBride, I know that you've had a gag order slapped on you, which is basically when a judge says nobody can talk that's associated with this case. But luckily, I'm not part of that gag order, and I want answers. I want to know why, when relatives beg DFACS, don't give Caleb back to his mother. Every time she even bothers to visit him, he gets agitated and cries and gets angry every time she comes to visit. He was with the aunt. Why? Why did they take the baby away from an aunt that loved him, stick him back with a mom that I believe killed him? Lieutenant McBride, why did social services do that?
Well, it's kind of, I've been explaining to other, media sources and things like that this case for us initially had come in last week. This hasn't been a case that we've had for a while. And on any death, there's a lot of investigation that takes place. With this particular case, it had moved so quickly that there's a lot of kind of back-end investigation going on now. With the other agencies' involvements, I really don't know, and I can't comment on why or what had occurred.
All right, so I get it, Lieutenant. The sheriffs are just getting it now, but every time I look at this child's face, it looks like he's looking at me. And I wonder if any of you feel that way about what are you going to do now? Why didn't you help me? And that's what I'm wondering tonight. Back to you, Nia Bender, anchor KFKA. Nia, thank you for being with us. You have relatives begging social services not to hand the baby back over to the mother. Why did they do it, Nia?
Well, originally, I think that social services, obviously, they want to return a child to its mother.
Why? Why is it obvious that the mother gets the baby back?
Glaringly obvious. And the aunt, Yolanda Kinzie Graber, had asked repeatedly she begged to not have him return to the mother because of the issue she had, but because the mother insisted, they went ahead and released him.
You know, last night, I went and got in bed with the twins and slept between them. And I laid there and just held them until they fell asleep. They are so precious. Nobody loved this child except the aunt. She begged DFACS not to give the baby back to its mother. A citizen's tip leads sheriffs to crawl under a house. And finally, baby Caleb is found. But he's dead. Thanks, DFACS.
Wrapped in blankets in a plastic bag, the remains of a young boy believed to be 3-year-old Caleb Pacheco. Logan County court documents say Kinzie told Joshua Briggs, her ex-boyfriend in jail on an unrelated case, she made a mistake and Caleb was with God. Briggs described a horrible odor, the smell of a decomposing body. Denver police found Juanita over the weekend, high on meth, saying her son was dead.
Very sick feeling, very sickening and sad to think that that's where he was left. Everybody loved Caleb, and he couldn't get enough of all of us. He was a sweet baby, sweet boy that wasn't handed the best deal in life. I want to remember the sweet smile. I would have never in a million years thought that it would come to this.
We are taking your calls. A citizen's tip leads investigators to crawl up under a house only to discover the tiny remains of 3-year-old Caleb. Tonight, Liz, please flash up the phone numbers for not only the Attorney General, but the senators and representatives in the area. Why does social services literally get away with murder? In my mind, this mom was like a loaded gun, a loaded 9mm, and putting a child alone in the room with a 9. That's what this was when they gave this boy back to the mother. And then, after handing the boy back over to the mother, when the aunt kept saying, where is he? Where is he? I can't find him. They go, oh, yeah, we don't know her LKA, last known address. Can't find her, case closed. The baby is dead. When will defects be held accountable? Out to the lines, Barb in Maryland. Hi, Barb. What's your question?
Hi. I really didn't have a question, more of a comment. I truly believe that this is just a ridiculous thing. I mean, that they just really dropped the ball here. I mean, a year? Come on. How would you not know a child has been gone for a year? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, and, you know, I thought the laws were out there to protect our children, and it just seems like that's just not the way it's going. I've had my own run-ins with stuff like this, and this is just truly unbelievable.
Let's go out to Lisa Lockwood, former police detective, author of Undercover Angel. Lisa, we've all seen it, how children get lost in the shuffle. What happened?
You know, the protocol with DCFS, the protocol with missing children reports, could the family have reported that she was missing, the daughter was missing? And then what happens is the police will say she has every right to go on with her life. Who's to say she's missing or endangered? So the whole bureaucracy tied to that is what the issue is. Same thing with DCFS. They have to look at the case. Why is this child in danger? What can you bring here to prove that? So I'm hoping the protocol is going to change regarding that, because this is absolutely an atrocity.
Let's go back to what investigators found under the home. With us, Heather Walsh-Haney, forensic anthropologist, Florida Gulf Coast University. Heather, right now we are waiting to find out more. Will they be able to determine a cause of death? What do you make of the way the remains were wrapped in plastic bagging, as well as the child's favorite blanket? How can they tell it's the child without a DNA match? What can you tell us, Heather?
Well, I think as far as the circumstances surrounding the discovery of the case, the fact that he was in the blanket, in the plastic bag, and buried, that bodes well for forensic lines of evidence to be collected. They can run talks on any of the tissues that have been preserved. They'll be able to see if any of the mother's methamphetamine had made it into the child's bloodstream. They'll be able to do DNA and compare the paternal, the father's DNA, or the mother's DNA to his DNA that they'll pull out of the soft tissue or the bone itself.
As to determining whether it is a baby boy or a baby girl at 3 years of age, what did they look for, Heather Walsh-Haney, particularly in a completely skeletonized set of remains?
Nancy, that's the unfortunate part of this case, is that determining whether a toddler is male or female based upon skeletonized remains is nearly impossible. So we'll need to do DNA to be sure.
She was asking me to watch him to party at night. He had a life here. It wasn't just we were babysitting him. He literally lived with us.
Sick feeling, very sickening and sad.
Wrapped in blankets in a plastic bag, the remains of a young boy believed to be 3-year-old Caleb Pacheco.
Police find skeletal remains underneath the home where the little boy lived.
Logan County deputies say a mother hid her secret.
His mother is in custody, charged with murder.
Family members grew suspicious of Juanita's stories about where Caleb was.
To think that that's where he was left.
And Juanita, who sits in jail accused of murdering her son.
This after family, friends, relatives looked for the child for over a year. Defects, Department of Family Children Services, say they can't find the mom. Unleash the lawyers, Kirby Clements, Penny Douglas Furr, both renowned defense attorneys. Okay, first to you, Kirby. Don't even start with me about insanity, because the mom not only, in my mind, murdered the child, told her boyfriend she had an accident with Caleb, but she kept him buried under the house for over a year. And then when she moved out, after having concealed the crime for all this time, she was showing specific concerns about what was under the home. So go ahead, give me your best defense, Kirby.
Well, all you have right now is that the mother is guilty of concealing the death of another person. You haven't shown me manner of death. You haven't shown me cause of death, time of death, nothing about death other than the fact that that child is dead. That child could have died at the hands of the boyfriend. That child could have choked on something. We don't know. Maybe she handled his death badly, but she was not the instrument of his death.
Question to you, Kirby. I think I know the answer, but rule number 1 of trial strategy, never ask the question you don't know the answer to. How many children do you have?
2.
Have you ever taken them to the ER for any reason?
Yes.
What was the reason, Kirby?
The doctor that I spoke to on the phone said take them to the ER, so I took them
Did
there.
they have a break? Did they have a fever? What was the reason?
Oh, no, I think they had a fever. But, you know, like I say, I may be a great parent. At least I think I am.
Is there a reason, Kirby, that you didn't just bury him under the house? My point is, you go to 911 or you go to the ER when your child exhibits an illness or a life-threatening situation. So, Penny Douglas Furr, why would you even assume this was a natural cause of death?
Well, Nancy, it could have been. We don't know until they complete looking at the body.
Oh, good Lord in heaven. I remember when your dog, your Rottweiler, passed away. You grieved. You're probably still grieving for over a year. And there's no way you would have just thrown the dog under the house to let it rot.
No, obviously she did that. But the issue is, did she neglect the kid or did she kill the kid?
Find a truly disturbing and shocking discovery.
Everybody loved Caleb, and he couldn't get enough of all of us.
Juanita Kinzie partied on drugs and alcohol.
Not making good choices.
The mother is behind bars. 3-year-old Caleb in over a year and begged authorities for help.
He had a life here. It wasn't just we were babysitting him. He literally lived with us.
What they would find a truly disturbing and shocking discovery. The body of little 3-year-old Caleb underneath the home where he lived.
The family of Caleb Pacheco says there were obvious signs that Juanita Kinzie was unfit to be a mother.
She was asking me to watch him to party at night.
Kinzie came for her son, even though Caleb tried to communicate to everybody that he didn't want to go.
He got angry. Angry. I've never seen a little kid so angry before.
Still, Kinzie got her way and would end up taking Caleb forever.
Police reveal the mother allegedly tells her ex-boyfriend that she made a mistake and her son is gone. When the boyfriend asked what she meant, the mother allegedly tells him her 3-year-old little boy was, quote, with God.
It's terrible. I can hardly even stand to look at this child's face and think about the way that our justice system failed him. Police are led by a tip to crawl underneath a house where they find the remains, the skeletonized remains of 3-year-old Caleb. For over a year, friends, family, relatives, neighbors have been begging DFACS, Department of Family and Children's Services, to find Caleb. Before that, they had begged in tears, literally in tears, not to hand the boy back to his mother. Of course, they did, and now the boy is dead. To Dr. Charles Sophie, he is the medical director of the L.A. County of Department of Child and Family Services. He is with DFACS, the author of Side by Side, joining us from L.A. Dr. Sophie, I know you in a lot of different contexts. I know you are extremely learned. I know that you give 200% to your job. But bottom line, Dr. Sophie, you are with DFACS, and I hold DFACS responsible for this child's death right along with the mother. What, if any, responsibility does social services bear for just handing the child over to a killer?
Well, you're 100% right. I think the issue is we have to find out if that was a closed case with them or not, with the agency. If it was an open case, they had responsibility to follow up and find out where that child was, because they have to do a regularly scheduled monthly home visit.
But, Dr. Sophie, what I'm asking is, why hand the child over to start with back to the mother? You got the aunt. The child's been living with the aunt. The aunt is happy. The child is happy. The aunt's begging, don't take the child away. Don't give it back to the mother. They did it anyway.
I know. I get that. But here's the issue. We get these children into a safe, stable environment away from a parent that really isn't able to do what they need to do or keeping a kid safe. But then we have to give a parent a chance to step up and get themselves together. And many parents, and it seems like from what I read in this case that she was a drug addict, get themselves together, they get clean, or they go to a program, they check off the list that you're supposed to do, and then you get your kid back, because every kid should be with their parents.
Really? How about when the parent is a meth freak? How about that?
I fully agree. But everybody, the system's work is that every child should be given the chance to be with their family. And if they're not given that chance, then we're not really doing our...
Dr. Sophie, no offense, but you're talking in circles. Why would you give the child a chance to be with its methed-out freak of a mom that murders it? Why? Who wants that chance? And to me, DFACS is not analyzing the case.
Well, we take the methed-out mother, we get her cleaned up as best as we can, and then we try to give her the chance to have her kid back again. But the bottom line is we can't oversee every kid and every parent that we've been involved with. We have to, at certain points, cut it off.
Well, what about when you've got family, neighbors, friends, relatives saying, don't give the baby back to the mother? Why in God's name would you give the child back to the mother?
We can't just go by what somebody says, even though they're good, solid relatives.
Well, how about what the baby says?
Healthy.
How about when the baby says, I don't want to go to my mom? What about that?
The child is 3 years old at that point.
Yeah?
And so you have to be able to take a lot of these variables in context to be able to make a solid decision. And safety and permanence has to be the first of all of those.
You know what? I could not agree with you more.
So the issue really is something as simple as, can this mom get herself together and parent in a safe and effective way? And she probably did enough for them to be able to give the child back. The issue here is you can give that child back, but you don't have to take your eyeballs off of them. And you stay involved in their life. You can stay involved in their life for as long as you need to.
There's just something so wrong with the scenario I'm hearing. I want to go to Brad Lamb. Liz, hook me up to board-certified interventionist, author of How to Help the One You Love, because handing a 3-year-old over to a meth freak, I mean, why would we give her the opportunity to murder this child? I want to go back to Nia Bender, anchor with KFKA. Nia, Sophie was talking about, was this an open case? Apparently it was, because DFACS said they were trying to find her last known address.
They were trying to get in touch with her, but she moved considerably, and she said that she moved most of the time to try to stay under the radar with social services, and she was everywhere from Logan County to further south in Douglas County, down around Castle Rock, so she moved a lot.
But, Nia, they knew where she would go. They knew where she would move. I mean, come on, it's just across the county lines. How hard is it? Let me guess, was she getting a government check?
I am unsure if she's getting any kind of a government check at this point.
I guarantee you she was on probation or parole for something. And if they could find, well, if they knew where she was, why didn't Child Services know?
Unknown.
I'll tell you why.
Unknown.
I'll tell you why. Here's a news flash. They were too lazy and too sorry to bother to cross-check with paroles or probation or government checks. They didn't bother to pick the phone up and check it out. That's how little they cared about 3-year-old Caleb. That's why they didn't know. With me right now, certified interventionist, author of How to Help the One You Love, Brad Lamb. Brad, to me, handing this baby over to a methed out mom is like putting the baby alone in a room with a loaded 9, a 9mm Beretta or Glock. What were they thinking, Brad?
You hit the nail on the head, and I'm so grateful that you're talking about this story because it's something that everybody can relate to. We all have somebody who we see doing crazy things that oftentimes put people's lives at risk, and we think we don't have a voice. And you do have a voice. Now, the caller that you talked to that was a family member, I know that's so hard to see what is now death and destruction happen as a result of addiction. Families have to get in there, don't take no for an answer, even if it means getting law enforcement involved and camping out at the jail. Really, the family has to have a voice, and you can in the face of addiction.
Well, here, the family tried. The aunt tried desperately to protect the child. DFACS wouldn't hear of it. Out to the lines. Melissa, hi, dear. What's your question?
Hi. I'm just calling because I just been listening here, and there's a few problems, I think. First of all, if so many people are concerned at the trial and about Jacob, then why wasn't there visitations? Like, starting with visitation. If she was a meth head, then why did she have to do a drug test every 2 weeks for, child welfare, I guess it'd be in the States? My concern is just, how did she disappear so long with so many allegations?
Good question. What do we know to Natisha Lance?
Nancy, we don't know much about that at this point. Unfortunately, she was able to slide under the radar. And not only was DCF after her, but also her probation. So why wasn't she being tested for drugs for them, too?
We are taking your calls. Somehow, DFACS couldn't get it together to find where was baby Caleb. Well, with us tonight, Lieutenant Joe McBride with Logan County Sheriff's Office. He'll tell you where baby Caleb is. His skeletonized remains were found buried in his favorite blanket under the house. Thanks, DFACS.
The mother allegedly tells him her 3-year-old little boy was, quote, with God.
I didn't know what to think.
Police reveal the mother allegedly tells her ex-boyfriend that she made a mistake.
Now the family is left to cope with the loss of Caleb.
Caleb Pacheco says there were obvious signs that Juanita Kinzie was unfit to be a mother. The family says Kinzie had drug and alcohol problems, but watch little Caleb they did, a boy they loved like their own son. About a year ago, Kinzie came for her son, even though Caleb tried to communicate to everybody that he didn't want to go. Still, Kinzie got her way and would end up taking Caleb forever. Months passed and frustration mounted. Finally, the family's worst suspicions were confirmed. The family says police have told them this is where the decomposed remains were found wrapped in a blanket. Caleb Pacheco would have been 4 years old this summer.
Precisely the age of my children. This child found dead, skeletonized under the home. Sheriffs led to find his tiny body and its remains there. Tonight, I want to know why Department of Family and Children's Services can literally get away with murder. And for anyone who has an interest in this, you have the right to go to court and contest Child Services' decision. You don't have to take it laying down, people. You don't. Out to the lines, Fran in Florida. Hi, Fran. What's your question?
Hey, Nancy, I just have a comment. You know, if our kids leave it up to DCF to take care of them, they don't have a chance. My son has been fighting for temporary custody for the past 3 months for his son. He has Marion County visitation, but he has proof that his ex-wife is shooting up cocaine and smoking crack. He has a Baker Act, law enforcement Baker Act, that he took in front of 2 different judges in the past month, showing that they found her at someone's house hallucinating off of drugs. Both judges have denied him temporary custody until the hearing because they said she needs to have a chance to respond.
Okay, hold on. Fran in Florida, I'm going to keep my producers on the line with you. Please let me know the 2 judges that did that, and you may want to consider going in for an emergency civil order, not criminal, an emergency civil order contesting DFACS's decision. All right? Liz, please get Fran's information if we can help her. I want to help her. Very quickly, Brad Lamb, board-certified interventionist, author, How to Help the One You Love. Brad, can a meth addict just turn it off? Like, my father one day said, okay, I quit smoking. That was it. He went cold turkey. Can a meth addict do that?
They can and they do, but most people that quit and stay off meth do it because they've got treatment of some sort, some type of intensive treatment, just like I did 9 years ago, Nancy.
Heather Walsh-Haney, forensic anthropologist. At this juncture, we had the defense attorneys Kirby Clements and Penny Douglas-Ford jumping up saying, oh, he could have died from an accident. Yeah, right. Question, will we be able to tell due to the possible date of death? I mean, it's been over a year now. Will we be able to determine cause of death, particularly if it was suffocation?
If it was suffocation, it's unlikely that we will see evidence of cause of death. But there is probably a history of child abuse on little Caleb. We can look for markers on the teeth that show a failure to thrive. Mom might have been withholding food. We can look for evidence of healed fractures on his bones that would point to a history of child abuse. That combined with that child being buried under the home, wrapped in a blanket, put into plastic, speaks of homicide.
Everyone, if you want to make a difference, as do I, here are the numbers to call to get answers. Colorado AG, 866-4500. Colorado Senator, 224-5852. Colorado Senator, 224-5941. You ask, you demand justice.